Welcome, everybody. We're here this evening with Nick Principe and friends to talk about the kindness of Meher Baba. And I was speaking with Nick yesterday about what we might look at today, and I brought up Gohar's name because Gohar had been the subject of a program earlier in the day. And he just picked right up on it, and he had a lot of things to say, and he thought maybe that would be a great topic for today, not just Gohar, but just thoughts that come to Nick when her name is brought up. And I'll leave it right there. So I'll hand it over to you, Nick. I want to welcome you, Jay Baba.
Hey, Bob, everybody. And Diane and Terry, I saw you there for a minute. Is your trip to Scotland, is that over? Are they gone now? Okay, we'll come back to it.
Oh no,
Oh, there you are.
they're here.
What did you
Did you
say?
have did you have your trip to Scotland already?
Yes, yes. We
And
just
was
got
it
back
a
last
big
week.
success? Big success, I hope.
Well, the biggest success, I have to say, and I was really happy, excited to be here today, which I am every other Monday, is the deal was I had with Baba was on silence. I would fast from being anxious about traveling.
Uh-huh.
And it was a whole different experience. He totally took it away from me. And even when we had to travel later on the trip, I reminded myself that I could fast from being anxious. And it continued to work, and which is wonderful. And the Baba stuff to share, if it's okay, is we went to Combe Martin, and that's where in 1931 Baba on Wild Beach announced to the Mandali that he was the avatar. And it's inaccessible by foot, but we were able to go up really high, and I mean high, and which is a big deal because I have heights, and Terry just had her knee worked on. And it was like he pushed us up there. And we have a picture of the beach looking down.
Wonderful.
It was wonderful.
Wonderful. I'm very happy for you.
Yeah, it was really wonderful.
Your gift to us that day was phenomenal.
Was that Nick's idea to fast from anxiety?
No.
Just you can fast from, from eating, you can do other things. And so Diane's brain told her to fast from.
Yeah, Nick was talking about outer silence and inner silence.
Yes.
Right. I actually came that deal came to Baba and me before this, and I came and shared it. And it was Nick who allowed my brain to wrap around the concept of inner and external silence, so much so that I had to not be so cocky to think that my silence was more profound than external silence. But it really showed me such a gift.
And what was really a trip is that night at midnight, we stopped talking to each other, and we hadn't planned it or anything. And as you know, we can talk between us and the dogs. We got a lot going on verbally here. And we just shut up until like 10 o'clock the next day. So we even had some regular silence. It was really very peaceful and beautiful. And our trip was it was filled with Baba all over the place.
And we're part of a mayor's tea with women every other Monday. And it happened to be the exact timing of the mayor's tea that we had just come down from up high, and we got to share with all the women the beach where Baba walked along and the caves that maybe he went into.
We have a lot of pictures. We can share them someday. Because, it's hearsay in a way, but it's not. People have heard this or read it. And like even where we went in Glastonbury at Chalice Wells, apparently Baba had walked through there. And it's a very spiritual, magical place. And so it's just interesting. I don't know that I love being close to him. So there's like a warm feeling when I'm there. I know that the fact that he was there, and we, even when we went up to Ojai this week, you know, and we're walking in his footsteps, there seems to be something remarkable about it.
Mm.
And I don't know
Yeah.
if we shared that the tree that burnt down in Ojai the second time, that in 2017, that they've had arborists. It's a tree that Bubba sat under, and it's gorgeous. They call it Baba's tree. And it burnt down, and they've had all kinds of people working on it to have it come back. And it looks like it's not only going to come back, but they planted acorns, and some acorns even worked on their own. So it feels like it could be an actual arbor someday. And the burnt wood, they got people to come in and see what they could do with it, so people in the community could have it. And I don't know if you can see it that well, but this is a heart
Yes,
that one fella made out of, and this one is amazing. It's a coaster. Can you see how,
yes, I certainly can.
isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
He gave donations to the center, so it felt really, really nice to be able to do that. And we've just had a lot of Bubba in our life, even with our travels. He's
Oh.
traveling with us is all I
We
can
do want to
say.
share one
Oh,
last.
we're traveling with him.
When we stayed in Edinburgh, the hotel sent us a welcome email and shared with us restaurants to, you know, that were good in the neighborhood. The number one choice, the first choice they gave us.
Was Bubba. And it was across the street from our hotel. And of course, we went there for dinner.
Everything had Baba on it.
Everything, the face of the computer, the front door of the place, in the window. And then they gave you a lot of different breads, and they put them in these bags. So our waiter gave us some to take home with us.
Did you tell them about Baba?
Yeah. And they have a Baba because it means father. I didn't get into it, but we said that our, spiritual.
We told our hotel
Yeah.
people because they seem more.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So it
No,
was
lovely.
just, yeah, I don't know.
Lovely
Life,
experience.
yeah, my life with Bubba is so different from my life before Bubba that he's such a profound person now, and a traveler with us, that we're not shocked when things happen in a wonderful way, because we know he's helping us, holding our hand along the way.
So you make me think of an interesting episode. I was roaming around Mehrabad, upper Mehrabad by the Samadhi in the early days, and there was nobody there. I mean, my first trip, there was 6 Westerners, and the Indians didn't come. There was some shepherds around and kids who would be moving their water buffalo, but there was nobody there.
What year is this?
And 1976. And to be very honest with you, I was very bored. And in those days, Nanakare, I don't know those of you who may have met Nanakare, he had been a teacher. He wasn't on the New Life, but during the New Life, he was able to do some work. Baba had him involved with some things. I forget the details, but he is mentioned. And then when he retired, he was permitted to live at Mehrabad, and nobody else was. And he and Mansari shared tomb duties. And I was there one day. I think I may have been the only one on the hill except for him and Mansari, and they would spell each other, so to speak. And I asked Nanakare, I said, how do you deal with the boredom? And first thing he said to me, he said, the cure to boredom is remembering Baba. And then he took me into the library, and he randomly pulled out a folder, and it was talks that Harry Kenmore had given in New York. And I had never met Dr. Kenmore. And he said, read these. Little small folder. And the first story I read, which I imagine most of you have heard, is that Baba had actually taken, Henry was blind, Harry rather was blind. Baba had taken his hand and put his hand on his own sadra hem, and he said, "Always hold on to my sadra, the hem of my garment." And after the talk, Harry asked if there were any questions. I think the talk may have been given in New York. And somebody said, "Well, Dr. Kenmore, that's very nice for you because Baba actually did that for you. But what about us who don't have that experience?" He said, "Tell me, who do you take Meher Baba to be?" He said, "Well, I take him to be my master." He said, "Do you believe he's God?" He said, "Yes, I do." He said, "And did not Baba say that this is all imagination? Do you believe that?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Then imagine you're holding on to Baba's Daman. So when you travel, you can imagine he's with you. You know, when you have a cup of coffee, when you go and you're getting in the shower, and just imagine he's with you. To me, it's the next best thing,
Mhm.
because the more we involve him, the more he wants to be involved. So yeah, with your travels and all that, just imagine him with you, bring him with you, let
Mhm.
him be your travel companion.
And his luggage is light.
Yeah, well, uh, he makes us carry the heavy bags, believe me. Eventually, eventually is. Anyway, let's get to Dr. Goer. The So the first little aside about Dr. Goer, which to me is just incredible. I can't say who it was because I don't have her permission, but there was a woman there who was a massage therapist, and she was massaging several of the ladies, and Goer was one of the women she was massaging. And Mara told her that massaging Dr. Goer was the same thing as massaging Baba.
Mm.
Now, what that means, I have no idea. I have no capability to understand that, but uh, let's just say, as a comment from Mara, I'd say that's pretty special. Um, I spent a lot of time with Dr. Goer. She actually is the one who told me to go to nursing school.
Mm.
This was at that first trip in 1976. I was married at the time, and my wife was a nurse. And Dr. Goer had her working with her in the clinic, and she had me doing some bandage stuff, and I didn't have really any medical experience at all. And then just randomly one day, she said to me, "Go to nursing school. You'll be so much more helpful to me when you in the future." And just before we left, Rhoda Mystery, Jim and Rhoda Mystery, they had, I think, 2 or 3 sons. And one of the boys, Falu, is now the chairman of the trust. And he had an older brother. Now we're talking about, mind you, 76. So we're talking about a very long time ago. Falu was very young in the 20s. I rarely saw him. Uh, Jim and Rhoda, I think Rhoda was still alive. I don't remember if Jim was. But anyway, Goer said to me, "Oh, and his brother was a physician who was living in New Jersey, married, he had children." And I was going back to New Jersey from India and I was going to stay with a friend of mine in New York. And Dr. Goer said to me, "Now, when you go back home, I want you to go see Dr. Mystery, and I want you to apply for a job with him because in the future, he's going to be the head of the medical facility here at Mehrabad." And I'm thinking, how do I apply for a job? I hadn't even gone to nursing school, but she told me to do it. So when we got back to the States, I arranged with my friend, uh, and that was Philip Ludwig. For those of you who know him, he lives in Asheville, but he does all the music, Sahaba stuff, and all that. I've known him for years and years and years, and we were staying with him on the way to India and on the way back. So I told Philip, I said, this is what Dr. Gora wants me to meet. I think his name was Jimmy Mystery. And Philip said, oh, yeah, I know him. Well, we called him and we set up an appointment to meet. And I invited me to his apartment. And at that time, he might have been in his the same age as me. I was in my 30s, and I think that's how old Jim was. Might have been 4 or 5 years older than me. And he said, so why did Dr. Goer, I had told him on the phone, Dr. Goer wanted me to see you, to meet with you. So he said, okay, why did Dr. Goer want you to meet with me? And I said, well, she told me to apply for a job with you. And he said, what medical skills do you have? I said, I have no medical skills. She's told me to go to nursing school. I said, he said, have you been to nursing school yet? I said, no, I haven't gone to nursing school. I'm just returning from 3 months in India. And he laughed. And he said, what else did she say? And he said to me, and I told him, I said, Goer said that in the future, you're going to be running the hospital at Mehrabad. And he threw his head back and laughed. He said, I would never do that. I have no intention of going back to India, and I would never take that as a responsibility. And we had a big laugh about it. We had a cup of tea, and I went ahead and went home and pretty much forgot about it. And even going back to India afterwards, Goer never asked about that particular episode again. But recently, I have been thinking, I wonder if Goer was talking about a future birth. That in the future, he would be working at the clinic, being in charge of the clinic, and I would be working there as a nurse. Now, again, going back to what we talked about initially, my feeling is that we can imagine anything with Baba as long as we involve him. So I think about that and I think, well, that would be lovely, to be able to do that. Anyway, I do know that when any of the Mandali said things like that, it carried a particular weight because, Baba was asked one time, he said, every avatar has a weakness, one weakness. And Baba was asked what was his, and he mentioned what the weaknesses were with each avatar. And somebody asked him what his weakness was with this birth. He said, my Mandali. He said, whenever they ask me for anything, I cannot refuse them. And for those of us who have that experience, the Mandali did not want you to ask them for anything. Like we have, certainly in the Catholic religion, you pray to a saint and you ask them to intervene with God. There are the Mandali always shied away from, don't ask us. I mean, I was told, don't ask us to ask Baba for anything because he will give it to you. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for you. It's because he can't refuse any requests from his Mandali. Nara had said, if you're going to ask Baba for anything, then ask him to make you worthy of his most precious love.
Nick,
So I had yes, sir.
I just a point I want to make. In your story about Dr. Mystery, I'm pretty sure that his name is Marwan Mystery.
Oh, you're right. Jim
Yeah.
was his dad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jim was
Thank
his
you.
father, right?
All right, thank you. Yeah, well,
Yeah, sure.
can't trust this coconut much anymore. Yeah, thank you for that. So one of the wonderful things about all these Zoom talks so I was mentioning this to Diane yesterday evening, we chatted on the phone for a while. So I periodically go to some of the Zoom talks on YouTube I don't tune into them when they're live. But I do go. I have a tendency to watch things in the morning, early morning. So I was watching. It was on YouTube, and I saw it was a celebration of Pendu. And in those early days, Goer's clinic was the rooms that were off to the left of Mandali Hall at Mirazad as you entered the room, the Mandali Hall. Those rooms right there, that was her clinic. There was no freestanding clinic. That came later, I think in the early 80s. And Pendu would sit outside at a table, and he had a servant there with him. And people would have to go, anybody who wanted to see Goer would have to go to Pendu, and he would take their name and whatever the complaint was, and then Dr. Goer would see him. So and this is a video that somebody had posted about Pendu, and there's Pendu sitting at Mandali Hall, and as the camera panned across, catching the entrance to Mandali Hall, panning over to where the blue bus is, and there I am sitting there on the bench with my wife, and Goer's walking around, and Goer's there, and Erich is there in his underwear. There were no pilgrims there because the clinic was opened at hours when the pilgrims were not there. So we got to stay. And it was such a treat to see that, because nobody was able to take a photo of that because there were no Westerners there. But my aide, I was showing that to her on TV, and she was able to get a screenshot, which, was just such a real treat, because what it also did was take me immediately back to that time. It was like the time just washed away, which is now, another year. You see 70, 30, 20, it's almost going to be 60 years in another year. And it just disappeared, that time difference. So to see that, and needless to say, my daughter was thrilled to see it, to see what her
Can we see
parents.
the picture? Can we see the photo?
Well, I will, I've got it probably on my phone. I think I can do that.
Diana can spotlight you.
I don't know what that means.
You don't need to know.
Just
Okay.
Make your picture bigger.
We'll wait till he finds it, and then I'll do it.
Sorry, I'm nodding off a little bit. I am really interested. Been a long day.
Yeah, you started early.
Really. So much fun. Marwan Mehta was with us today, Nick. Marwan Mehta, who was Norina.
Yeah.
It was we have a video. I'll send you the link.
I was just watching that video before I tuned in.
Such a sweet guy. So much fun. Okay.
Just
Does that help?
That's good. You need to, let's see, can we
Come
make,
closer to the camera if you can. No, you're to the camera on the computer.
I get it. Give me a minute.
Oh,
He
okay.
had to fix.
My
Oh,
my fingers don't work well. That's
and what is, so the subject again?
well.
Nick.
This is yes. This is at well, the YouTube video is the celebration for Pendu, and
Oh.
this is myself at 35 years old or something, and my wife sitting on the bench
Lunch.
right outside there. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes,
Get it.
quite clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's yeah, it was real, you know, well, it just, anything that we do, well, to me, it's one of the things that helps me survive old age without completely collapsing in a heap of despair, is to be able to spend a lot of time reliving those memories. You know, just turning the clock back and
Yeah.
realizing how and how blessed we all were to have time. It's one of the huge advantages that the youngsters are missing now. You know, we may have missed Baba physically, but we had the great opportunity. When I think that I was privileged enough to spend time with Mara and Mani, I can't hardly believe it. And there are people who, you know, I talk to youngsters who don't know who Erich was. And
Hmm.
that to me is amazing.
Hmm.
You know, it's like asking a Christian about St. Peter.
Here. Yeah. Mm.
Of course, their memory is going to come much more to the fore in years to come. When you know, years from now, when people are looking back at Baba's advent, and they're going to study all the Mandali as Christians study the lives of the saints.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't think I did the understanding that Baba dropped his body in 69 and you said you were there in 76 and there were only maybe like 6 Westerners.
Yeah.
So what did the Mandalay do all those years after Baba dropped his body until they became like almost caretakers of his message in person with the pilgrims?
Here's the picture too.
Well, my experience with them is the there were more Mandali than there were West pilgrims.
Right.
You know, Rana was there, Adi was around, Bao, you know, Mani, Erich, and Rano used to come to the trust compound every day. That's where the office was, and we were my wife and I and a few other pilgrims were staying at the Dowlet, which was a real slum of a hotel. I think we might have paid 2 or 3 rupees a night for the bare bones room that was little more than, you might say, almost like army barracks. Um, and but it was you know, right across as you walk out of the compound uh, for the trust compound, there is the big tower that's like a water tower or something. And Sarosh had a canteen there, Sarosh Canteen. So you cross the street, there was Sarosh Canteen. You cross the next street, and there was the Dowlet. And the few of us that were staying at the Dowlet, that's where everybody was 4 or 5 of us, 1 or 2 or 3 people may have stayed with Vilu. But we would divide our time. We just go to the trust office. We could see them at any time. And they would come out and sit with us outside and just chat with us. Part of it was not fun because, I mean, probably the worst scolding I ever got from anybody was from Erich. There, he just embarrassed me, reduced me to tears. And then I consider that episode now one of the great blessings of my life. I'm going to preface this by saying that before going to India, we stayed at the center for a week, I think. And we were watching videos. You know, there wasn't that much available in those days. And one of these videos was Erich was pouring water over Baba's hands. There was a basin. This was at Mirzad. The chair where Baba would sit, the basin, the pitcher are still there, right on the little side table. And Erich would pour water. Baba would hold his hands. The basin was on the table in front of Baba. Erich would pour water over Baba's hands. Baba would wash his hands. And then Erich had a towel draped over his arm, and he would bow his head and offer the towel to Baba, and Baba would take and dry his hands. So now this is my first day, and I'm at the trust office, and I am thrilled to be able. I'm meeting Mani, Rano's there, and Erich comes out of the office, and my wife was talking to Mani, and I'm just standing there. They're just exchanging, who are you, where you're from, kind of stuff. And I'm just standing there listening to this, and I felt something under my sandal that was bothering me. And I lifted my foot and looked down, and there was a cigarette butt stuck to my sandal. And I tried to get it off, and I couldn't. And I reached down with my finger to flick it off my sandal. Just then, Erich comes walking by. He's got papers. I had already met him or just introduced to him. He comes over, he says to me, Nick, you pig, where have you been raised? How have you been raised? And I was mortified. I was absolutely mortified. He said, come with me. Mani standing there, and I could feel myself, tears welling up, thinking, I'm going, I'm leaving, I'm going to go home. This is the wrong place for me. And he leads me through his office. His desk was on one side. Mani's desk was on the other. Mani's desk was on the left as you walked in. His was on the right. We walked through that room, which was not any bigger than maybe 10 by 10. And there was a door opening at the back, which was open. And he leads me over to a sink. And he says, wash your hands thoroughly. And I'm washing my hands, and I'm weeping. I don't want him to see me. I'm crying. And I hear him say to me, don't ever touch your bottom of your soles of your shoes in India. He said, India is one great big toilet. He said, the ground is so dirty, don't ever touch anything. And while I'm thinking of, I'm out of here, I'm going to go back and go home. I don't want any part of it. And I finish washing my hand, and I look, and there's no towel. And as I turn around to look for a towel, Erich is standing there with a towel draped over his arm. He bows and offers me the towel, exactly as he did for Baba. And I realized right then what a gift it was, because what he told me was for my benefit, wasn't for his benefit. And then subsequently, afterwards, then I went to nursing school. And even now, I mean, I have a housekeeper. She comes, she said, I don't know why you even call me. She said, your apartment's immaculate. It's always so clean. And so he put me in that habit of being extremely careful and clean, especially when it comes to, when Bao used to come and stay with me, that whole, it was just prepare things as if you're preparing them for Baba. The food's always got to be the best. It doesn't have to be it's not sirloin steaks, but whatever pick through the strawberries, make sure you're getting the best strawberries. Don't just randomly go and grab something. It's and those habits, I think, are like I said, it was just a real blessing. He never mentioned it afterwards. He never said anything. It was so yeah, and I think they were all like that. Goer, she was the one time she embarrassed me. When that first trip to India, we had lost a child, And they knew about it because, long story short, and this may be for another meeting if people are interested, but Baba's brother Jal had named the baby and kept and would write to this unborn child. So by the time we went to India, all the Mandali knew about this episode. And they treated us with the utmost gentleness and kindness possible. So one day we're walking in the garden with Goer. Now the baby had died in, I guess, he was born Christmas Eve. He only lived about 4 weeks or 5 weeks. So he died sometime in January. And we're in India in June, July, and August. So, so first of all, Goer told my wife that she needed to start eating organ meats. Now, I was not only a vegetarian, I was a fruitarian. I lived on fresh fruit, milk, and water. To me, anything else was disgusting. So she tells my wife that she wants her to eat organ meat because she was anemic. She had an episode with the heat. She had passed out in India, which was her blessing for her because Padre treated her. And so my wife tells Dr. Goer, she said, "Oh, I can't cook liver at home." And she said, "Why?" And she said, "Nick won't let me cook it. He's a fruitarian. I can't cook anything like that." Goer turns to me and said, "Not only will you cook for her, you will eat with her." Now, where this gets really like a smack in the face, before going to India, I mentioned that we had spent a week or two at the center. And I was a very self-righteous son of a bitch. If there was an Assholes Anonymous, I'd be a founding father of Assholes Anonymous. So I was very critical of anybody who was eating hamburgers, and I'd walk around and tell them that it wasn't spiritual to eat that kind of food because I had read that Padre had put pleater on milk for a year. So that's where I was going. I was eventually gonna go on a milk diet because I thought that was spiritual. So here I am being a total jerk at the center. Now here I am 3 months later, I'm back at the center cooking liver and onions in the kitchen. And people looking at me like, "Oh, what happened?" Baba happened. That was yeah. And but one day as we were walking through, we were in the garden at Mirazad. Goer was in the middle. My wife was on one side of her. I was on the other side. We had lost this child months before, and Goer said, "So, what kind of birth control are you using?" Out of the blue, and I was mortified. I had no, I was looking at these people as, not normal people. They were saints in my mind. I didn't realize how ordinary and normal they were in the way they dealt with the world. And so she said, "What kind of birth control are you using?" And I just said, "Oh, excuse me." And I turned and I said to my wife, "Would you handle this with her, please?" But that's how matter of fact and direct she was. There was no beating around the bush. It's just, yeah, she was rather extraordinary. I got to spend an unusual amount of time with them because prior to going to nursing school, I had been a hairdresser. My middle name is Rocco. When Katie, Goer's sister, found out that my middle name was Rocco, she exploded in joy because when she was working during the New Life, Baba had sent her to Bombay to work. And I think she was staying with Arnavaz, and she got a job at the Japanese embassy. And Katie had this magnificent head of hair, and she had an Italian hairdresser whose name was Rocco. So when she found out my name was Rocco, that sealed the deal. So it sort of, after everybody would leave, I would sit in the back with the women, and that little building that was in front of Baba's house, Mayor's house, that little building, I think Rano lived there. I'm not sure. Arnavaz may have lived there. I think that was Arnavaz. And in the little patio, they would set up a salon. Nani's there with a typewriter. And I was doing hair. I was cutting hair. And it was, very intimate time and quite extraordinary. Yeah, one of the people I met it's the only time I ever met her. Mansari had a niece who was a doctor whose name was Meher, a female. And I cut her hair. She just gave her haircut. I never heard about her, never met her, never heard anything about her, but I was very, very fortunate. Dr. Alu, I don't know if those of you knew Dr. Alu. She lived at Mehrabad, and she was a physician. I don't remember if she was traditional allopathic or Ayurvedic, whatever it was. But anyway, I did the rounds once they found out that I could do hair. So it was a pretty special time. So just to circle back, when I saw that video about Pendu, about 76, all of a sudden those memories just flood back. So I would encourage anybody to make sure you go through your old photos. Just take yourself back there. We have a tendency to want to keep experiencing new things, but I'll tell you, that was a rare time. It's not to be seen again this birth. For those who had any time with the Mandali, whether it was Kitty or Elizabeth, or in India with them, just extraordinary people. And to me, they are the ladders by which we climb. They're like signposts, going this way up. You want to go to Baba, just go this way, because they're role models for us. So I'm hoping somebody has some experiences with Goer themselves.
I want to show a photo of Goodheart in '73.
Oh,
Can I get a
Okay, I'll make.
share screen ability here?
Do you want to share? Do you want to share a screen? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
share
I can do
screen.
that. I'll
Yeah, I
do
just
that.
want to show this photo. I think
Just a
Nick
second.
would
Wait
have
a
fun
second.
with it.
Yeah, I'll make you co-host and then you do it.
Yesterday was Goer's birthday. We celebrated that yesterday with a nice video by Irwin and some stories.
Oh, how beautiful.
There you go.
Yeah, that's how I remember her.
Is that the clinic?
What? No, if this is 73, it's not the clinic.
No.
The clinic wasn't there until probably maybe late 70s or 1980.
Oh,
No, as a matter of fact, I believe that's the house at Merazad where Rano and Arnabaz lived. See, Mani, Mera, and Goer lived in the big house with Baba.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, because that porch looks like where I would set up my little salon. Yeah, Mani would sit on the porch behind where this young lady's head is. And she had a little desk and a typewriter, and she would sit there and work while I was doing hair.
Great. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. Actually, I have one more story that I just remember about Dr. Goer, too. That I'll go ahead and share. I only see Ron's face on the screen. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So my daughter knew that her mother and I had both worked in the clinic because after with Goer, because after I went to nursing school, we went back to India for Amar Tithi in 1980. We had already had jobs, but we managed to negotiate a 30-day leave of absence, unpaid leave of absence. So off we went from our TT and we worked in the clinic. And then I had gone back. I've been there 9 or 10 times. My daughter knew that her mother and I had both worked with Dr. Goer. So she was very anxious. I took her to India when she was 7 years old. And when she met Dr. Goer, Goer took her around the clinic, showed her the clinic. And Marie said that at 7 years old, said, I want to work here like my mommy and daddy did. And Goer said, of course you can. And she put her in a lab coat and hung a stethoscope around her neck and had her make rounds with her.
Oh.
She would go see a patient, and then if the patient needed an injection of something, she would allow Marie to wipe the patient's arm with an alcohol wipe, and then Goer would go after and make sure it was done right. But but what was adorable is Marie said to me, I was with her. Her mom was not with us on that trip. Matter of fact, her mother never made the trip with Marie and I. It was only Marie and I who went. That was that trip and subsequent trips. And my Marie said to Dr. Goer, I don't want my daddy to come and help. And Dr. Goer said, no, no, of course not. Nick, you stay over here in the office. And I was reduced to just being a bystander while Marie was making rounds with Dr. Goer. But it never left her. I think it's one of the richest memories that my daughter has. That this woman treated her so kindly. Hello, Alan. Jay Baba.
So Nick,
Yeah. Yep.
we were we have another 5 minutes or so, and you know we can still talk a little bit longer. In connection with Dr. Goer, there's always her sister Katie and her not co-worker, but another person from the clinic, who is Pendu. And I'm wondering if you'd like to say anything about either Katie or Pendu in relation to Dr. Goer.
Well, I don't know that I can because I don't think, I, you know, I think of the Mandali as like fingers on the two hands. Each finger is related to another finger, but they all work independently. And that's how the Mandali were, I think. So I don't think because Katie was Goer's sister, even though how to put it, you were never reminded of it. When I was with Kitty, when I was with Elizabeth, I was never reminded that they were female. They never did anything to remind anybody that they were other than the person they were inwardly. There was no playing on the external. And Katie and Goer, that's how I think of them. I know intellectually that they were sisters. Uh, I don't know what they talked about in the privacy of their own rooms, but Baba certainly had a different relationship with him because Goer went on the New Life.
Well,
And that's very different.
I was thinking, I thought that Katie had helped Goer in the clinic. And if you had ever seen,
You know what? I have no memory of that.
okay, I
Yeah.
may be mistaken, but I thought so.
Well, it may be. I mean, I wasn't there all the time.
Hmm.
You know, the times I was there. Now, we talking about the old clinic or the new clinic? The old clinic where Pendu was, uh, you know, I don't recall seeing her there, but that doesn't mean she wasn't. You know, they were, you know, that's really, Pendu at that time was still active and strong, but they had very different responsibilities. And also their relationship, you can't, at least for me, you can't separate the familial ties. You know, Pendu was Baba's cousin, as was Naja. And I remember reading one time that Baba had said, never ever criticize my family because you have no idea what somebody goes through to become a member of my family. So that's Pendu. You know, and Jal, who is, you know, of course, Baba's brother, and Mani, Baba's sister. Um, Goer was not a member of the family. Now, that has nothing to do with anybody's inward development. I don't presume to know anything about that. But they certainly had a different outward relationships because of the blood relationship. You know, it's sort of like Baba, you know, used to say that his mother drove him crazy. She just always caused him grief and suffering. So, you know, he never would never say that about anybody else, but almost everybody can say that about their own mother at some point or another. You know, she drives me crazy. You know, it sort of almost goes with the job description. Um, you know, but the family ties, I think, were really different, and and I think because of that, they're yeah, I don't know what their responsibilities were. But after that comment from Mara about Dr. Goer to that massage therapist, massaging Goer is the same as massaging Baba. What does that mean? You know, she didn't say that about Katie. So, yeah, I don't know. Although Katie was, I loved Katie. Katie actually visited me in my house. You know, she was in the States once. And Jerry, I forget his name, the guy had been the nuclear engineer, Jerry Edwards. He had a private plane and he flew her up to Chapel Hill. And she came to visit me in my house. I had an upright piano there. She walked in, banged on the piano as hard as she could, and shouted, Jai Baba. The house reverberated with that. I don't remember anything else about her visit but that. Um, yeah, Meru had also come there one time the same way. She had Jerry Edwards flew her up, and she came in. It was on Silence Day. She was there. Wow, I hadn't even thought about that till now. And we were outside. She was very interested in my garden because I was growing roses, and I also had very large particular shrub that she wanted. Anyway, I won't get into that. But we had a dog, and the dog was a rather wild dog out in the backyard. And the dog approached, and Meru immediately got it to sit just with gestures. Her presence was such that just with gestures, she put her finger up to her lips to the dog to be quiet, and then gestured with her hand to sit, and the dog obeyed. I have no way to put any of that stuff. I can tell you what happened, but I'm not going to try and spin it. I know that's the popular thing to do, but I have no idea what any of that means. I just was witness to it.
That's a beautiful image. It's a beautiful image for us to close today, because we've pretty much run out of time. And
Yep, I see that.
you've shared so beautifully today. I want to thank you so much, Nick, for all your stories and
My
remembrances.
pleasure.
It's
Bob.
wonderful spending another hour with you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. It's an absolute delight for me, because doing this, I get to bring those memories back. So
Yep.
because I especially the last week before, I do this on the first Monday of the month. So the last week of the previous month, I spend a lot of time thinking about what I'm going to be talking about. So it's sort of like it becomes a meditation. So with that, I'll say Jai Baba to everybody, and Baba bless us all.
Jay Baba,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Thank you.
Baba.
Hey,
Thank
Baba,
you.
Nick.
Thank you,
Jai
Nick.
Baba.
Baba be with you.